welcome everybody. I'm pleased. I'm not sure any of the rest of you are also in the Eastern time zone or not. Let me turn on the chat window here and encourage you, if you have questions along the way, to write your questions in the chat window or raise your hand, and Alex will point those out to me. This is best done, particularly at this point on a Friday, if it's interactive. And so along the way here, I'll be asking you questions as well to get your input on some topics that I want to cover. So today I want to talk about how to help seekers. And this issue is that there are students in the classrooms. I've been teaching at the University of Michigan now. This is my 42nd year. And to put that in perspective, I understand that the Michigan football team has been playing for 140, I think it was 141 years of Michigan football. Basically, I've been here for a third of it. That puts some perspective, or almost a third of it here. So it's a long time I've been at the university. And over that long time, thinking about how to do a better job to engage students, and how do students seek help, and how can I help them seek help? And that's what I'd like to talk about today and hear your thoughts about what you think. Now, one of the reasons I'm here today, being I am a climate scientist, my main research is on air pollution and climate, but I got involved in creating educational technologies to try to improve interaction in my classroom. How do I engage my students better? And then this fellow came along, Stuart Karabenick. And I met Stuart through a series of events a couple of years ago. And Stuart wound up being this genius of a person who knew about help seeking. He comes from the School of Education at the University of Michigan. And we got together, became good friends, and I would say drinking buddies, and went out and wrote a couple of proposals, and both of them got funded and by the National Science Foundation. I'm going to talk about that today. Then Stuart, darn him, went and died last summer. A great loss for me personally, because he was just a good friend. But his genius and how he was thinking about how to help students has guided the technology that I've tried to create here. I want to talk today about use of technology, and I want to start with a question. How do you think students seek help? And those of you online, I'm going to ask you to take a second and just give me a sentence. Students, we have these ideas. I have these ideas as a faculty member about how I think students get help, what they do to get help. So sure as hell is not coming to talk to me. So
and in the chat, we have an answer. They come to their favorite faculty member.
Friends, they email me, good. They talk to each other. Yes, they talk to each other. And that interaction between classmates is critical to their development on campus, absolutely. And I would argue, in fact, that's probably the most valuable part of going to college. Yeah, we faculty are a lot of fun, but the real value in going to college is you're going to be around other smart people that you can ask questions of and learn from each other. And it's likely to learn more from each other than you will from your instructor. So knowing that, what I'm going to talk about today are two aspects of help seeking. The first aspect I'm going to focus on is inclusivity. That is that I was a first generation student. I came from a small, very, very rural town. And when I went to college, everyone else seemed so worldly. And I certainly didn't feel that confident walking into the classroom. And there was no way in hell that I was about to raise my hand and ask a question in class for fear of looking stupid in front of these, I thought, were very smart people. And particularly, it's my job teaching climate science in this day and age. How do I engage a greater breadth of students who think about coming into my field? And for that to happen, they have to feel a sense of belongingness. And often in these, particularly these large introductory courses, there's not an opportunity to feel that sense of belongingness in the lecture hall or in the large classroom. So I want to talk about that today. What can we do to maybe break down some of those barriers to help students help themselves in the classroom? And then second, independence. Seeking help may happen in the classroom, but probably not. The capacity to seek help on one's own schedule is a benefit to students. So I'm here largely because I saw the course Hero, for example, being one of those things that my students go to seek help outside of class. I want to try to tie together resources like Course Hero with the things that I'm doing in the classroom, things you may be doing in the classroom. Let's go back to the first topic though, which was inclusivity. An inclusive classroom is a classroom in which instructors and students work together to create and sustain an environment in which everyone feels safe, supported, and encouraged. And that's not my words, that's from a document from the University of Michigan Center for Learning and Teaching. So how do we do that? That's a nice words to have, but how do we do that? So in my years of teaching, I started doing a survey on day one of my students. And in that survey, I asked, how comfortable are you asking a verbal question in class? Because you've all had that experience, I am sure, where you say, any questions? And that's what happens. Now, in my history, when I did that in class, trying to act out of them some response, I went over the course of a semester, I might get a dozen or 2 dozen questions total over the whole semester. Apparently I'm intimidating. They don't want to speak up with other people in the room. It's a large room. Maybe they don't want to interrupt the class flow. For lots of reasons, they don't want to ask verbal questions. But the important thing here is, look, for the students who are first generation, the darker colors are less comfortable. They're less comfortable asking questions. And so in this situation, it's statistically different here that the first generation students are less comfortable than those who are not first generation. Likewise, the women in my class are less comfortable than the men. The men is about 50-50, a comfort, not comfort. There's still 50% of the men that aren't comfortable, by the way. But for the women, it's even greater. And so I've created an inadvertently and unexpectedly and not unintentionally an uneven playing field where some cohorts of students are less likely to engage in inquiry for lots of reasons that I'm sure you understand. So my response to that was to introduce in my class a back channel. And this back channel allows students to ask questions during class. Let me show you that. This is a tool I use. It's from a company called Echo 360. I like Echo 360. It's a great tool. You might find other tools that do this. If you haven't, find this one. And with Echo 360, I'm presenting class, and students can now pose questions. And these one of these buttons up here, they pose questions, and the questions come streaming in. Now, my class is like 225 students, and I could be looking at the questions myself as class comes in. But I assign my teaching assistant, I'm blessed with a teaching assistant who sits in the room and basically does spin control on what Perry's saying. So I don't know what Perry really meant to say was. So they are answering the questions from the students in quasi-real time. But the students all see the questions that are coming in and they see the responses, but they don't see who asked the question. And that capacity now to ask a question in a safe way. And by the way, we do point out to them on day one that I and my teaching assistant do know who's asking the question. So you can't do any kind of try to be a jokester in the class. But this way, students can ask questions freely and get responses during class, questions answered when they have them. And I've been doing this now for a number of years. And here back, this is some data from a few years ago here. It just gives a sense for, I mean, look at this, the number of questions asked in a semester. You know, a moment ago, I said if you ask any questions, you might get, you know, a dozen or two over the course of the year. 500 questions a semester. How sobering is that? I mean, for all the years I've been teaching, to see this, to understand how confusing I have been and didn't know it. But through this process, I've opened the door so that students can engage in inquiry. They can ask questions during class. They can engage with the material more easily during class time. And I argue that this by itself has a tremendous program. So, and the outcome of this startled me. Look at this. The percent of students asking questions. I showed you a moment ago how the women in the class were far less comfortable asking questions in class. But with this system, with an anonymous back channel, now the women are actually asking more questions. A larger percent of the women are asking questions in class than the men. And the number of questions they're asking is higher than the men. And it's a statistical difference. But the big news for me is we have leveled the playing field. Everyone can engage. Everyone can ask questions and participate. The same is true, by the way, for the first generation students. The same is true for students from English is not a native language and maybe less comfortable asking a question. So from my viewpoint, this by itself is victory. So I'm here today to encourage you to consider, you know, I'm not promoting that particular product. It's a great one. Get it if you can, Echo 360. But think about how can you offer the students the ability to ask questions anonymously in class. Give them a way to ask questions without embarrassing themselves in class. And even the ones who don't ask questions benefit from it because they can watch this flow of questions. And many other students might be asking the question that they would ask during the class time. I posed to the students at the end of the semester for the last 5 semesters, to what degree do you think having the ability to ask questions anonymously was a benefit for class? And this graph speaks for itself. More than half said it's a huge value. And I'm not showing you the other graph I could have today, where I also went out and emailed students who had taken my course in the past and asked them, do you feel like having this in your initial course enabled you to have the confidence to ask questions in the future in other courses? And there are a vast majority answered that yes, it did. And I can't say that we haven't done enough research really to nail that down. But I will tell you that this has now been funded by the National Science Foundation. And by the way, we're looking for classrooms where we can try this in the fall. Ways where we can we try this out in the classroom? And we're gonna do a semester without it and measure how many questions happen as you normally teach, then add this and see how many questions you get once you add this anonymous back channel. How does it change the dynamics in the classroom? If you're interested in that, at the end, I'll hand you my email address. Let me know that we can talk further. But the idea here is I want inclusivity. I want more students to participate. I want more students to feel like they belong. They're smart enough to get into college. I want them to think that they belong there. And this is a way to do that. And let me just watch the chat over here, make sure I'm not asking any important questions here. Yeah, and you can share your PowerPoint with it. You can, and you can actually broadcast. I'm sitting here on the beach-ish. I broadcast my class with Echo 360 Live to my classroom, wherever they are around the world. So it's got built in the capabilities to not only, broadcast your class like you can with, say, Zoom, but also to share your slides with them and inject questions. I'm a meteorologist. I love to embed questions about images. They can put dots on the map. They can answer multiple choice. It's got a bunch of tools. Happy to talk about that offline. Next question for you. We just talked about what help they might seek. When do you think they seek help?
The chat is open for everyone to put their guesses into.
Thank you,
I
Alex.
guess it's late at night.
At the point of frustration, when they have time to do their work, at the last minute, there you are. Yes, they do it just the week before, days before exam, hours before the exam. At some point, they're motivated to seek help. Is that likely to be during class time? Nay. I've made this graph this morning, just trying to think through how do you break down a student's week? And this is my off the cuff calculation of what students' time looks like. That they're in class about 7% of the week. They sleep maybe a third of the time, or whatever they do at night. And they're certainly not in class about 60% of the time. And so that's likely to be the time when they are doing their help seeking, if they're doing any. And that's a time in which I have little interaction with them. Yeah, I have office hours and nobody comes to that. And I offer to them email and Zoom sessions and nobody asks for it. So on their own, as you pointed out a moment ago, they go talk to their friends, they do other things and such. And then my second project here under the title Independence. Now I'm a geek and I create technology, but I know that these students have access to a whole plethora of other resources. And maybe their LMS, in Michigan, we use Canvas. Maybe it's their textbook. Vital Source is a place you can go online and get textbooks. Maybe it's their library, or they take notes in Google Docs. Maybe there's these recordings. Somehow the class is being recorded by some vendor. And they have access to all this, and this becomes a way that they can go. They can go and seek help outside. If they're not going to go to the professor because he's intimidating, then they can seek help from these kinds of resources. So the concept here, I'm just starting, we've got a National Science Foundation for this as well, is how could we make it so all these disparate educational platforms, and I should have put Coursera up here, I'm sorry, all these platforms could talk to each other and know about each other contextually. And so the thing that my team is building at the moment takes the videos coming from whatever platform you're using to record the videos for class. Maybe it's Zoom, maybe it's Kaltura or Echo 360 or Panopto or all the many other platforms. It doesn't matter. But we take the videos from your class that are being recorded during class, and then we do an interesting thing with them is we take the video and transcribe it, and we take the video itself and we look on the video for what are you presenting, look for words on your slides as big hints for what you're talking about. And then we use artificial intelligence to figure out what the hell is class about. And we come up with a list. Here are the key words that were discussed in today's class. And we've got this in a database then class by class. And with that, then by indexing all the content that comes from the video, we can make a search engine, basically a Google for your course. And now the student can search within a course. And if they go search in the course, maybe they search in my course. I've got a course on extreme weather. Is this the best course in America or what? I teach about extreme weather. And so maybe they look for the word instability, because they know that's an important term. And by searching that, it takes them to here are the spots in the video from the whole class where that term was used. And it gives you instances where that was being used. It shows you the text that was being spoken at that moment. You can click on this and it would open up the video at that spot in the movie of that video. So the students have narrowed down their search and are able to find the specific content that they're looking for. This is sort of step one in a process of building out a new system that can ingest all the videos coming from class or classes, with the goal being that somewhere down the road, if we started doing this now, that the student, let's say over their 4 years of school, in their senior year could go, gosh, you remember somebody mentioned the word instability, and you'd look it up and it would show you in any course you had been in, those moments where that word was used. You could go back to your sophomore year on October 13th, 15 minutes into lecture, and bingo, listen to that part. So the issue here is just helping students, again, help seeking. How do you help students find the material? They know they can find this material, and yeah, they can go listen to the video and play it at double speed or something, but how do we help them do that? And this tool is meant as a way to do this outside of class time, how to review the material that was presented during class time, outside of class time. And it goes a step further. Whoops. It goes a step further here. This system we're building called CLUES, standing for Contextual Learning for Undergraduate Education System, which I thought was a cute acronym. What it does is it takes the recordings from whoever does your recording, does that processing to understand what was going on, and puts those words in a database where it breaks it down by timestamp when the word was used and what day was it used on, and then does the same thing with the documents from the course. It goes through the textbook for the course. It goes through the documents in your LMS. It might look in the library or other places, and basically indexes your educational ecosystem. And doing that, yeah, we can build a search engine I just showed you, but we can go beyond that. So, whoops. So you could be in your textbook, and in the textbook, basically click on a concept in the textbook, and your own instructor, it would pop up your own instructor talking about that concept. So it kind of personalizes the textbook to your own course. This is a new idea. It's just beginning. We're hoping we're going to be testing it in 100 classrooms at the University of Michigan in the fall. But it's getting at this concept of help seeking and everything. I encourage you to think about how to help the students seek help. And these are a couple of ideas that I've got to try. We might try to do that. Both of these projects are ongoing. If you're interested in getting involved in either of these projects, I would be pleased to talk to you. Any questions?
Perry, I want to share that Jacqueline has shared a reaction to what you were sharing. Gosh, I'm sorry, Jacqueline, did you want to just come off mute and share? Because I'm scrolling up this chat and it's kind of crazy. Nothing but questions. How do I do all of this? Capital all.
Yeah, exactly. That holy cow, such great ideas. In just the time you've been talking, I sent the link for Echo 360 to our tech support to have them take a look at it and see if that's possible. I texted a colleague going, oh my God, could we do exams like this? And the idea of anonymous questions, even though I have a small, really tightly knit cohort, because I'm in professional school, I'm a physical therapist, and so I teach in the School of Physical Therapy. So our cohort is really tightly knit up until the next to last term when they hate each other. But before that, you have the same 5 people who speak for the entire cohort, you know? And I think the anonymous questioning would allow those people who are so afraid to show their vulnerability, it would allow them to direct a question. I mean, even if all they did, if I had 10 people text, I don't get it, that would be great, because that tells me I need to go back and repeat something. So this has just been also genius, in the idea of linking the recordings with AI, because it's such a hassle for them to try to remember, oh God, what lecture was that in? You know, and to go back and study. So yeah, this has been great content. Thank you so much for sharing.
We did bottle that, right? It's all recorded, so I can give it to my dean.
Heck yeah. Oh yeah.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Well, I do encourage people to think about this. Finding appropriate resources is the challenge here. Linking, and the students are, you know, they like us are busy people, and they're trying to be as efficient as possible getting their information. And again, going back to the student like me, who's at a rural student, perhaps not necessarily aware of how to study. We hope that this will be, again, going back to Stuart Karabenick, his big thing was, how do we help that student? Can we give them models and show them, here are the kinds of resources you should be looking at? If they don't know what to be looking for, we can point them at appropriate resources. And to be honest, the reason that I'm here is because I talked to Alex about, and of course, Hero, for example, has resources for students, but do they know about that? And do they know how to get there? And do they know that that would be relevant to today's lecture? I mean, that's the sort of connectivity I would hope to make. I like to think of this tool as sort of being the mayonnaise in the education sandwich. It kind of holds it together and makes it tasty. That's I love, it's dinner time here. So I see that as
I love this metaphorical closing, Perry. Thank you so much for giving us your time, both to our speaker and our attendees. We're at 3:44, which means we have 1 minute left until our final session of the day, where we'll talk about what's next, where do we go from here. And my colleague Mandy is about to put the link to access that in the chat. Perry, did you, your email is on the screen. So for everyone, it's Samson at UMichigan, put it in, .edu. So if you'd like to connect with Dr. Samson, please feel free to use that. And with that, I will bid everyone a farewell. Until the next session, please join us there. The link is in the chat. And Dr. Samson, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a good night, everyone.